in our voice and service in our heart. When I pulled up and my room overlooks the convention center, I said to myself, it's hard to believe that just 6 years ago, we came in here and we took over, and they still are asking when you're coming back. I think so many of you rolled up in here today, they were getting a little bit scared. When y'all started rolling in, they said, uh-oh, here they come. Here they come. But I've seen how we celebrated Centennial and we celebrated our joy in the sisterhood, because it is supposed to be joy in the sisterhood. But we have to reflect and remember our past and remember why we are who we are. Time and history tells us that the founding of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority takes us back to a time before all of us were even born. Before the Voting Rights Act, before the Civil Rights Act, before Brown versus Board of Education, back to a time when America was just a generation past slavery. It was a time when Jim Crow was a way of life, when lynchings were all too common, when race riots were shaking cities across a segregated land. Yet, 22 women, 22 collegiate women set out on a noble act of service. They didn't let fear stand in their way. They knew that they had to act, and they knew what they had to do. They founded Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, incorporated on January 13, 1913, and they didn't say we're going to have a tea party, nor start the tea party. We're going to act, and we're going to step out. And they marched knowing that voting rights for women had to be passed. They knew that they weren't even going to reap the full benefits of membership or citizenship. Nonetheless, they marched in support of sisterhood, in support of social activism and solidarity for all women and equal rights. They understood that unjust laws needed to be overturned, that legislation needed to be passed, and that presidents needed to be pressured into action. Tearing down walls ain't nothing new to us. We ain't building them, we're breaking them down. Our founders had a vision in a physical sense. They would see not only where you are, but they saw what was in front of us. They even saw what was confronting us. Yet they had a vision in a metaphorical sense, in seeing the open moment in which you stand beyond your immediate circumstances. That's why we celebrate today. We cannot lose sight of these 22 young women's vision. We have to change and make change and stand for change and be the change that we wish to see. They still looked at the tenets of the Declaration of Independence, and they asked themselves, are all men created equal? Are we endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights? Among these being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But they turned to their Bible, and they would read chapters like Micah chapter 6, where the prophet says that God has already told us what is good. What does the Lord require of thee, the verse tells us? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Delta Sigma Theta has tried to do what God has required. Yet we find that the more things change, the more they stay the same. We still protest against the double standard of morals. We still walk and march for Voting Rights Acts. I'm still counting down the hours and the days to the 2020 election because somebody's gotta go. 660 days, 11 hours, 14 minutes.
And we ready for him to go. He's our president.
And counting. And Delta Sigma Theta is going to help you get your way out. Go build your own wall. Because we're not building one here. Delta will be stepping out on change. We recognize that these are no ordinary times. Our founders understood that within each of us, we are the leaders that the world has been waiting for. They understood that the African American community only needed to look within to find our ambassadors and to tell and promote our needs, our concerns, and our story. That's why we celebrate today. It's not simply the journey of Delta Sigma Theta. It's the journey and the commitment that many have traveled in collaboration with us, in collaboration with the community. We work with the politicians, we work with the schools, we work with the churches. The struggle is real, sorors. But that's why we come together every year to reconcile, to reflect, to renew that we have to have a power in our voice. We've always understood that when times change, so must we. We have to hold to our founding principles. We have to speak up and speak out. We have to honor those members that came before us. That's what our direction has to be about. It's sorors and deltas like Sadie T.M. Alexander who would say things like, I knew well that the only way I could get the door open was to knock it down. So I knocked all of them down. It was deltas like Mary Church Terrell who said in 1916, and surely nowhere in the world do oppression and persecution based solely on the color of the skin appear more hateful and hideous than in the capital of the United States. Because the chasm between the principles upon which this government was founded and in which it still professes to believe and those which are daily practiced under the protection of the flag yawn so wide and deep. 1916, but it holds true in 2019. Ida B. Wells said, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon the one who had better die fighting against injustice than to die like a dog or a rat in a trap. Child, we got some powerful deltas that came before us. We got some powerful deltas who are out there serving for us, but we are the change that we need to see. We have to be relevant as we look to the future and the legacy and the relevancy of Delta Sigma Theta. We have to remember that the founders did not give us Delta Sigma Theta. They left us a legacy for the future. We must continue to fill that legacy through service in our hearts. It's not ours for the keeping, it's ours to pass along. This is the road that Delta Sigma Theta has traveled for the last 106 years. These are the remarkable things that we as an organization and as a people have been able to accomplish. What makes Delta Sigma Theta great is our ability to come together as sisters and to come together as one in keeping and perfecting our nation, our country, and our world. We have to continue to fight. We have to contribute.